Touch mine.
Welcome to this week's episode of Whoscussion. I'm your host, That Random Stick Guy, and with me is, of course, the illustrious, the elaborate, the perfectly designed, and astronomically accurate Harriet Skelly.
Yes.
Alrighty, up on the panel today, for part A, we'll be covering the Mutants and the Time Monster. We're finishing up with part B, where we'll be doing the final chapter, which is an 8th Doctor comic book story, and Sock Pig.
Yeah,
Alright.
Sock Pig.
Sock Pig! Alright, not to be confused with Peppa Pig. Okay, so, The Mutants. Harriet Skelly, take us away.
Well, yeah. This one, yeah. It's quite an interesting story, honestly. It's got some weird things going down on it. Mainly those beetle people.
Yes.
Yeah, the Beetleborgs.
Yeah. The Beetleborgs.
Yeah. This is I really have a hard time explaining this one.
I know, that's why I was like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, it's yeah. Okay, let me just do the story then, shall we?
Yeah, and then we'll try and we'll like figure this one out.
What's going on? So we met immediately with the Doctor and Joe, and a box sort of just shows up, some form of parcel. I guess Doctor's being told to be a delivery boy by the Time Lords, apparently.
Yes.
And is instantly shunted off to exactly where he needs to go for this. And a sky base. Guessing this is just some sort of space station.
Yeah.
Low orbit. Yeah. We're quickly explained into the story as shortly after, I guess, the what's the thingy thing. Shortly after the colonization that humans do outside of Earth, they eventually end up in on this particular planet, which is being called
Solos.
Solos.
Yeah, Solos
is an interesting name. Where they've already found that there was something living on there, but they wanted, human beings wanted to take it over again, because that's what humans do. They like to do that.
We sure do.
Yeah, and very British colonization going on as well. They sort of, turn the current owners of it into slave-esque deals.
Yeah.
Just sort of turn them against one another by offering some of the more corruptible ones offers of technology and stuff. But yeah, down the line, Doctor is figuring out what's going on, all that sort of stuff. He's trying to find out who he actually is supposed to deliver this parcel to, which will only open once it's handed to the correct person. Which they quickly find out is no one on the base. And is clearly one of the Solosians, however you want to say it, Solonians. They figure out is Kai is the one that they should be giving it to.
Who's the benevolent leader, right? He's the nice leader of the other tribe.
He's the one that actually cares about his people. And is not as corruptible. He's kind of not happy about what the humans have been doing, and is generally pretty angry about the whole thing. Kind of like he's the rebel leader.
Yeah, I suppose, but without actually leading a rebellion.
Yeah. Without being that sort of rebellion. It's just he's the leader of the other party, the liberals or the conservatives, whatever you want to choose that is. But yeah, from there, from figuring that out, upon figuring that out, basically, a bunch of stuff goes down, mainly with the humans, the Earthians, the Earth-like people, the overlords, as they're calling them.
Yeah, the overlords.
Attempting to, or the marshal, the original marshal, of course. Is it the marshal? Is that what he's called? Or administrator?
Oh, administrator, yeah. The guy from Earth is like just turned up.
No.
Oh no. Yeah, he says that we've been called back home, right?
Yeah,
Because Earth is broke.
Yeah, he's like, basically, we don't want to deal with this anymore, so we're just going to leave them to their own devices and actually give them their independence back. So, mainly just because we don't want another Boston Tea Party on our hands, but also because we don't have the money for this. So, the Marshal, who has spent years of his life trying to convert this planet into habitable for humans, and generally because he's kind of a bum, like a big bum, a big brown bum.
Yeah, he is he is a big dirty asshole. That is for sure. That's Whoscussion canon. Yes. You heard it here first.
Yes, he is. He does some bad things, mainly assassinating the administrator, or at least leading to his assassination.
What I want to know just before that is Kai has been a dickhead this entire presentation the administrator is giving. If Kai had just shut the hell up and let the administrator talk before he got assassinated, the administrator was going to give them their freedom.
Yeah,
I'm like, Kai, just shut up.
He was really salty about the whole being enslaved and generally just having bad things happen. Yeah. I can understand that. And at least at least he was just making harsh comments instead of actually trying to get into a fight. Yeah. At least he was just doing the Twitter fight. Yeah. Basically. But anyway, after that assassination and Marshall blaming it all on Kai and the Thessalonians and that sort of deal, Kai runs away. Takes Joe with him just because, it's just Joe. And escapes back to the planet, where we find that the planet has unbreathable air during the daytime for humans. Yeah. Includes Joe, of course. So she has a hard time. There's some bits in there with trying to track her down with Kai. The Doctor getting blackmailed for Joe's safety, and the security guards who are surprisingly moral. Yeah, honestly. And I really like which ones? I mix up both of their names. I don't want to be a dick and say the wrong one. So, what are their names?
All right. So one of them is Stubbs, and the other one is Cotton.
Stubbs and Cotton.
Yeah.
Stubbs and Cotton. And Cotton was the one that told the Doctor that they actually hadn't found Joe when Marsha was lying to him, saying that they had, and blah blah blah, that sort of deal. Just general overcomplicating of the scenario. But in a realistic way, which is a lot better than oversimplifying something in a not realistic way. Yeah.
What's really good to note about Cotton is because the Mutants is basically about the South African apartheid, essentially. And the good thing to note about Cotton is that he was an African descent male.
Yes.
Playing a really important, integral character in the story. And I think it was a good thing for them to do.
He was Rick James.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah, that's very interesting that the actor's name was Rick James.
That's good. Anyway, this carries on from there. In between, sleight of hand from going from up on the Doctor's end to up on the Marshal's end in that general vicinity. But when it comes down to onto the planet and what's going on there, that's a little bit more interesting. Where eventually the Doctor manages to get down there at some point. Meets up with Kai and Joe, just as the mutants are sort of like seemed like they're attacking them, but they're not really kind of attacking them.
Yeah.
Joe ends up in a radiation room, gets picked up by a guy in a radiation suit. They all eventually figure this all out, get to the guy with the radiation suit, which is what's his name?
Professor Sondergaard.
Professor Sondergaard. That's the
But
one.
I just want to interject there. Professor Sondergaard is played by John Hollis, and for all of you Star Wars fans out there, he's Loba from Cloud City.
Yes, he is, and he is actually really good in this as well.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that his name is Sondergaard.
Yeah.
Anyway, some really ingenious names in this one. Anyway, they figure out that they finally get the box open. It's a bunch of tablets, basically explaining the life cycle, I guess, the seasonal changes of this planet, and how to fix the people in it. Or at least the Doctor eventually figures out how to fix the people in it. That effectively the mutants that had been annoying them were not simply products of what the humans have been doing to try and change the planet's atmosphere. It was actually their natural course of events for them, but the humans have been sort of messing with it a little bit, which is quite interesting, especially when you find out what happens later in their evolutionary scale.
Yeah.
I want to get to that really quickly, actually, because that's hilarious. So from there, they get captured again after figuring out the stuff, and get pulled back to the sky base, and that's when the security guards Cotton and Stubbs end up playing their hand, really, and call on one of the human vessels in the area, the Hyperion. Seriously, excellent names in this.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And then a investigator comes on board. That sort of stuff happens. But during this, the captured Kai, Stubbs, and Joe. I think Cotton was in. No, I think no, Cotton was there as well. And they'd captured them and put them into the fuel line of the sky base, so that when the Hyperion got there, the fuel line would hook up and then push radiation between them as sort of the fuel that seems to be in the future. Of course, killing everyone in there, completely destroying them. But the first time they escape, the second time, not so much. But luckily, Sondergaard is there with this fantastic crystal, which allows all that radiation to get sucked up by Kai, who then turns into Freddie Mercury. Seriously, he turns into Freddie Mercury. That's what happens. He totally does.
And I love how he becomes like a god. I'm like, what? The Time Lords want a race of gods running around.
Well, I don't think that was the case. I think that they are just simply ascended beings, sort of like the
Dude, they shoot lasers out of their hands and can move through physical matter.
Yeah. They're like the ascended ones from Star Trek. It's not Star Trek. Stargate. That's the one. They're like from Stargate. Just the general ancients and the ascended, where they're incorporeal enough to move through things, but they can blast things with their mind and generally do radiational things. Yeah. But at the very least, he's totally Freddie Mercury. That's absolutely what he is, because he's just got this fantastical gown on him, and they've done this fantastic rainbow effect over him. So he's got the shiny face on and everything. It's just so
Thunderbolt
good.
and lightning, very, very frightening. But I love when he shoots that laser out of his hand and deatomizes the Marshal, and the Doctor just smiles. He's like, ah. Yeah. I'm like, Doc, for a guy who abhors violence.
Yep, that's really it, though. Is that the Doctor's been trying to stop all this violence and stuff, and then as soon as Kai's just ultimate superpower, he's just like, it's not like I planned this, but I'm okay with it.
It's absolutely perfect. Yeah, that's pretty much Mutants in a nutshell. The thing that I found probably the downside of the story for me is that like the Time Lord's message.
Hmm.
I feel the Doctor and Sondergaard would have come to that conclusion without them.
Maybe I
Yeah,
don't possibly. I mean, the point of the tablets was that like saying that because Sondergaard knew that there was no actual seasons on the planet because
yeah,
it doesn't rotate that way around the sun that it's at. But the Doctor figured out via this tablet that instead of actually doing the seasonal change, it during its path around the sun, it gets closer and further away, changing the amount of radiation that it receives.
yeah,
So it's kind of like a seasonal thing, but it happens every 2,000 years instead of just one.
yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Maybe the Doctor would have figured it out eventually. I guess he would have eventually figured out that the mutants and their deal is sort of a natural stage.
Mm.
But I guess it probably would have taken a few more episodes, maybe.
Yeah, it probably would have been a lot longer. Yeah. What's interesting is that the Time Lords are very big on non-intervention. Extremely big on non-intervention. So I feel them being cryptic actually works because they weren't interfering. They just sort of nudged it a little bit.
Yeah, and when it comes to them moving the Doctor around in this particular sense, you find that the Doctor is showing up in places where humans would normally have shown up, and particularly with human events in the future. So he's getting pushed into the Peladon thing, into all the other things that happened.
Yeah, space colony and all that.
Yeah, the other settlers and this in itself. I have a feeling that what they're doing is actually fixing events that have changed because of the fact that they have stranded the Doctor on the planet Earth.
Oh, right, yeah.
So he can continue to stay there, they have to keep trying to change everything back to the way it's supposed to be by sending the Doctor to where he needs to go to fix that stuff.
To fix that. Yeah, wow, I think that works quite well.
It seems to suit for me, anyway.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Well, this story is interesting in that is the third story in a row without the unit family.
Yeah. Actually.
So I don't know. I think it's just a bit random that the unit family aren't in it for like a majority of this season, which I was kind of a bit miffed about. But that all gets changed around when we go into our next story, the Time Monster.
Oh yeah.
Yes, Freddie Mercury appears as a bird in this one. So the Time Monster, the Doctor has basically he's chilling out with the unit again, which is pretty good. The Brigadier has been called off to go look at this device called the Tom Tit, which is basically a teleportation device, and the Doctor's not particularly interested in going until Joe mentions Atlantis.
I guess.
Yeah, it was pretty. It's a pretty random segue. It's like she's like Atlantis, and he's like, "All right, let's go now."
I kind of. I thought that it was the time thing that really did it for him. So he was trying to test. He was trying to dream.
That's right. He has that weird dream about the master. That's so random. It works though because Time Lords are telepathic, so it's not exactly like it's like a random curveball. I can totally accept that the Doctor would have a dream like this, especially since Time Lords have oracles. So
yeah, I could also see for multiple different reasons. Really, it could have been the TARDIS telling him that bad things are going to happen because of what actually happens at the end of this.
And that wouldn't be the last time the TARDIS has done that as well.
Yeah.
Or it wouldn't even be the first time because in Edge of Destruction, the TARDIS does that. Yeah. It starts messing with their heads because it doesn't know how to tell them they're in danger.
Yeah, and then, or it could have even been actually have been Kronos telling him, "Hey, what are you doing?
Oh
You need,
yeah, to
you need
help
to get off your
Kronos out.
you need to get off your butt and help us out."
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. It's good that Harriet Scully brings up Kronos because basically you find out pretty much straight away that the Master is trying to summon a god.
yep.
This time they're a god race of time eaters, literally
Yep.
time eaters, which makes you wonder if they are what created the moment, because the moment was a time eater.
Maybe that
So
the moment is part of this.
yeah,
The moment
maybe.
made. Well, the thing is that the Kronos is the idea is that he's a Titan. Um, well,
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
really from the actual Greek mythology, he is the father of the Olympian gods. But
yeah,
and this they're saying that he's the Titan of time.
yeah,
Um, and that he comes from a race of
a chronivores.
chronivores.
Yeah, they actually eat
So
time. A
yeah,
god race of time eaters.
so I imagine that that the moment is one of the chronoids.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with.
Chronivores.
Because
However you say
you
it.
find out that the chronivores can actually change form as well. Like I mentioned earlier, at one point they're Freddie Mercury dressed as a bird,
Yep.
and then at another point they're a giant corporeal face
Oh yeah,
of a
the
woman.
giant face controlling the entire realm that they're in.
Yeah,
That's glorious.
it's just such a '70s story. I love the '70s-ness of this. There's
Yeah.
like
To the fact that oh man, just yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a scientist that has this freaky 70s mustache and
yeah.
acts like a Japanese guy. Joe keeps saying groovy about
Yeah,
every.
she says groovy like four times in the story. It's crazy.
It's like, man, this is a groovy dress. Man, we're in the Kronos world. This is groovy.
Yeah.
And the fact that like when he tries to introduce her to the Atlanteans, he says this is Joe Grant, and they start calling her JoJo instead. I'm like,
Yeah.
you just wanted her to be in the 70s all of a sudden.
Yeah. Jojo Grant. It's actually just Joe, thank you. The master brings up the fact that there are gods. He talks about that there's this realm between time and space where it's filled with gods, basically. And I mean, like we know that from the First Doctor that the First Doctor says the same thing about the Celestial Toymaker's toy room, as the
Yeah.
toy room is outside time space. So basically, the gods live in outside of reality, which makes a lot of sense because they're flipping gods and they do totally unrealistic stuff with their power, like build a celestial toy room. And I love how how the toy maker just kidnaps people from like anywhere in time and space and just turns them into toys and just has a good time. I was just like, this, what a random thing to do with your godlyhood. Like,
Well, I guess that's the real nature of gods, as shown very well in this, is that when it comes to ultimate power, it also makes you crazy,
yeah.
like like proper crazy, to the point of like, yeah,
Yeah. So because of this Tom Tit device, the local space time's being warped a lot. The Doctor decides to use his TARDIS to combat it. However, the Master uses time space to move warriors from the Earth's past to try and stop the
yeah,
Doctor's TARDIS from turning up. It's quite interesting. They fight. They get jousted off the road.
yep,
They get attacked by roundheads,
yep.
which I actually think is actually a slur. So I don't know if we can actually say that, but that's what they said in the story. So don't shoot the
That is
messenger.
what this is the story. Yep.
So they called them roundheads. And then the final coup de grace is a U-2 bomber from World
Yep.
War Two. The everybody dies from the bomb except for Yates. I thought that was so crazy. I was like, what a load of crap that only Yates survived. Like, he's like, I can't die. I'm contracted to still be in the show. Like, but all
He's
those
like,
other actors did.
I'm a main character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the Doctor whips into the TARDIS and goes off to combat the Master's TARDIS. And because he can't time travel, he's basically hopped onto the Master's TARDIS. And the Master, he was meant to go around the Master's TARDIS, but he programmed it wrong and ended up inside the Master's TARDIS.
Well, he
And
ended up both. He ended up
Oh, that's
In the
right,
loop.
yeah. In a Loueye, where he was around and out inside.
He was inside and outside the Master's TARDIS. Yes.
Yeah. And the Master, I love when the Master just looks at it and he's got this time-traveled priest from Atlantis with him, and he goes, he like looks at it, and he like looks at the priest, looks back at the box and is like, yeah, I kind of just won, so...
But, sweet.
It's like, okay, whatever.
How am I going to mess this up?
Well, let me tell you how, Master. So he comes out to the Atlanteans and is like, "Hey, this is the second time you guys have been in the show, and
And you're going to be in a bunch more times.
yes." So he comes out and he's like, "I'm a god." And there's this guy's lived for 500 years because of the temporal waves that the chronon energy, the chronon crystal gives out. That and he's like, "Yeah, I don't believe you. I'm 500 years old, so you're not a god."
I've seen plenty of gods in my time. I've seen would-be gods, demi-gods.
And so the master's like, "Oh shit!" And the king, I can't remember his name now. King the guy, King Atlantis, King Triton,
King Triton.
King. King, what the heck was his name? No, it wasn't Crassus. Neophyte?
Crito.
Crito?
No, Delios.
Delios! There we go. So anyway, Delios, he's this 500-year-old fella. His wife decides to rebel against him. So that's another interesting
I think
thing.
I think it was a close, honestly. A close is what did that. Seriously. Like, everyone else in Atlantis was just really well, like, that was the deal, because, you know, they're ancient Greeks. I mean, of course they would, you know, they wouldn't be all, like, out there with their boobs. But she totally was.
Yeah.
So I'm absolutely believing that that's what it was. That's all. That's what caused it.
And I love how the master gets, like, brought onto her, and he's like, "Yeah, I could totally go for this girl. She's evil just like me." And I was just like, "Master, you're not going to really get rid of that fantasy, because believe you me, mate, you'll be marrying one of them soon." So the master ends up becoming king with her as his queen, and Delius gets thrown into prison. But just before he is,
Sure,
the doctor
dies afterwards.
Yeah, he gets and he dies in such this 70th way. He gets bonked on the head by a pitchfork, and then he's dead.
Yeah.
I was like,
with an old man. Come on.
what? What? Yeah, it was I suppose he was 500 years old, but that was such a random way for him to die. I looked at it and I wanted to look away from it. I couldn't believe he was dying. But just before that segment, the doctor does this incredible insight into his childhood. He talks about
Yes.
a bad day that he had, a really bad day, and he goes to see this hermit behind his house, which is interesting. He specifically states that it's behind his house, so I really enjoyed that. And I'm wondering if it might be the day where he saw the dead body.
Probably.
That, shook him up, and he's like, because he talks about it being very somber. He's looking around, he can't see colour in anything around him, and then this hermit's just like, "Dude, look at this flower." And the doctor's like, "This flower is the greatest thing ever. Thanks, man." The powers
Thanks,
of Time
Habbit,
Lord.
for all of this ecstasy you gave me.
The powers of Time Lord drugs. And so he sends, I'm guessing about a 7-year-old high doctor back to his house. And the doctor's like, "See, that's why you don't need to be afraid, Joe." And Joe's like, "You know what? I'm not afraid anymore, doctor, but I won't
even though I
got you."
Even though I had no idea what the hell you were talking about.
Yeah, even though you're talking about some crazy space shit, I'm so happy right now. But yeah, then just after that, Delius gets thrown in. Literally the millisecond they stop the conversation, the door opens and he gets thrown in and killed.
Yeah.
And then I find it so funny. The doctor ends up next to the throne, and somehow the queen doesn't know that her husband's dead.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "What? How can this be?" I was like, "Surely the guards would have told you." Gee, they would have walked in to grab Joe and the doctor and been like, "Oh, the king's dead." So I was a bit flabbergasted with that scene.
Yeah.
The Tom Tit device in modern times is freaking out, and it's caused some sort of time field. It's turned Sergeant Benton into a baby.
Yeah, that's so good. The baby bent.
Baby Benson. They start feeding him a mushed up sandwich while they're trying to figure everything out. I love how there's this pro woman's lib character, and she's doing all this like the stuff that would be like commonly associated with television at the time as like the man's job to do. She's doing all this cool like technical gadget stuff, and you've got the guy with the big butty '70s mustache feeding the baby, and I was like, well done, guys, well done.
Yeah, BBC really hit it on the nose with this one.
I was just like, that's really good. And the Doctor ends up thwarting the Master. He gets pulled into the groovy Chronoverse.
Yes,
and
groovy.
What I find interesting
groovy
though,
baby.
is Kronos is like, I'm going to torment the Master for eternity, and the Doctor's like, oh, don't do that. And she's like, oh, okay, even though he's been torturing her for like a day straight, like,
yeah.
I'm just like, that's
like
random.
Like, he says, let us deal with him in our own way. So, sort of like, oh, but can you just like put him in the prison back on Earth? That would be cool. And she's like, no, I'm just gonna let him go. What?
And it was so confusing because she's clearly pissed off beforehand, and the Doctor's like, I want to deal with my own way. And she's like, okay, I've forgiven the Master's sins. I'm like, he's literally been torturing you. Like, that's the actual thing he's been doing.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a bit random. And yeah, I didn't like how it turned out. I think it would have been cool having like the Doctor just leaving the Master there, and then like,
but then they wouldn't. I'd have trouble explaining how he got out of.
Yeah, exactly, because it's literally a god. So yeah. So
and it's not like a god that like is controlled by their own games, like in the Toymaker, where the Master could easily like trick his way out. This is a god that like is proper gaudy.
Yeah, and will proper eat time.
Yeah, and proper eat time, and eating a Time Lord would probably suffice for them for a very good time.
Yeah. So like, I'm going to eat all of your possibility. Wait, what? Ah, my possibility! I can feel it going.
No, that's my time worm. Don't take that.
No, I need there to be retconned. Ah. So Atlantis ends up underneath the ocean so that the second Doctor, so the Doctor's past, can meet the Atlanteans in the future, who have decided to pray another god.
Yeah.
Someone. I'm wondering if that's like meant to be the Master then now. Has someone written? It's so random, but there we go. Anything you want to add to these two stories before we move into part B?
No, that really about sums it up. They're quite interesting stories. I guess they don't really add too much to the canon, other than that whole, again with the Atlantis thing. It's about it, really.
Yeah, and 5 instances of Atlantis. I think the Mutants. I think it's all right, but I think the Time Monster definitely outweighs it. I think the Time Monster was definitely the better of the two.
Although Freddie Mercury as Kai was fantastic.
It was pretty great, especially when he started shooting laser beams out of his hands. I was like, okay, you've got my attention now, Kai. Alrighty, well, with that out of the way, we'll move on to part B.